December 23rd, 1944. 1,150 hours. German observation post, Hill 510, 2 kilometers northeast of Bastogne, Belgium. Oberstfreiter Klaus Hoffmann, 23 years old, from Hamburg, pressed frozen binoculars against his eyes and watched something that would shatter every assumption he'd held about this war. The sky was filling with aircraft, not the dozen desperate transports a surrounded garrison might expect, not the small relief flight that exhausted defenders could hope for. An armada, Hoffmann counted aloud. 10 aircraft, 20, 50, 100. He stopped counting at 150 because he'd lost track of formations stacked at different altitudes, all converging on the snow-covered fields around Bastogne. His voice cracked when he called to his platoon leader. "Herr Lieutenant, they're everywhere. Hundreds of them. The whole sky is full of transports. This cannot be happening." Through German artillery sights, through binoculars, through tank periscopes, thousands of German soldiers watched colored parachutes bloom across Belgian sky like impossible flowers. Red parachutes, blue parachutes, yellow, white, green, orange, each color coded for different supplies. The entire Luftwaffe couldn't mount operation of this scale. Hadn't been able to since Stalingrad disaster 2 years earlier. Yet here, over one small Belgian crossroads town, the Americans were casually displaying air power that exceeded anything Third Reich had achieved even at height of its power. Hoffmann lowered his binoculars, looked at his squad mates, saw the same realization in every face. They weren't fighting an army. They were fighting an industrial civilization that could conjure fleets of aircraft from thin air. And they were losing. The confidence had been absolute 7 days earlier. December 16th, 1944. 0530 hours. German artillery positions, Eifel region. Operation Wacht am Rhein. Watch on the Rhine. Hitler's last desperate gamble to split Allied armies and recapture vital port of Antwerp had begun with thunder that shook frozen earth. 1,600 German artillery pieces opened fire simultaneously across 130-kilometer front. The barrage lasted 90 minutes. Over 10,000 shells per minute hammered American positions held by inexperienced troops and exhausted divisions sent to Ardennes to rest. Generalmajor Heinz Kokott, 49 years old, from Westphalia, commanding 26 Volksgrenadier Division, watched from command post as his rebuilt division prepared to advance. His unit had been destroyed on Eastern Front, reformed with Luftwaffe ground personnel, Kriegsmarine sailors retrained as infantry, Volkssturm militia, and handful of Eastern Front veterans. On paper, 17,000 men. In reality, perhaps 15,000 combat effective, but morale was extraordinary. They'd been promised this was Germany's moment of destiny. Führer himself had planned this offensive. Weak, decadent Americans would crumble before German determination. Initial success validated every promise. American positions disintegrated. Entire battalions surrendered. Others fled westward in panic. Roads at Antwerp seemed open. By December 18th, German spearheads were racing toward objectives with stunning speed. The mathematics seemed simple and achievable. General der Panzertruppe Heinrich Freiherr von Luttwitz, 53 years old, veteran of France 1940 and Russia, studied maps with professional satisfaction. 7 major highways converged on Bastogne. Control those roads. Control entire American supply system in Ardennes. Without Bastogne, Americans couldn't move reinforcements, couldn't supply forward units, couldn't mount counteroffensive. Luttwitz's plan: attack on 7 Mile front with 3 divisions. 26 Volksgrenadier and 2nd Panzer would lead assault. Panzer Lehr Division would exploit breakthrough. The 26th was well equipped for this mission. Its Panzerjäger Battalion had full complement: 14 track Hetzer tank destroyers, 42 75mm towed anti-tank guns. Best equipped Volksgrenadier unit in Ardennes. They were ready for American armor, ready for counterattacks, ready for everything except what they would actually encounter. December 19th, 1944. First indication something was different. Americans weren't simply retreating in disorder. They were falling back methodically, destroying bridges, establishing roadblocks, making Germans pay for every kilometer. Units like Combat Command B, 10th Armored Division, held Germans off just long enough for something unexpected. December 19th, 1944. 0300 hours. Reims, France. 101st Airborne Division Barracks. Lights snapped on in middle of night. Whistles blew. NCOs shouted through corridors. Get up. Full combat load. Trucks waiting outside. were moving now. The 101st Airborne, the Screaming Eagles, had been resting after brutal Operation Market Garden in Holland. They were understrength, under-equipped, missing key personnel. Division Commander Major General Maxwell D. Taylor was in Washington attending conference. Assistant Division Commander Brigadier General Gerald J. Higgins was in England. Acting Command fell to Artillery Officer Brigadier General Anthony Clement McAuliffe, 46 years old, from Washington, D.C., West Point class of 1919, woke to impossible orders: load entire division on trucks, move 107 miles to Bastogne, arrive before Germans take town. No time to draw winter equipment. No time to requisition proper ammunition loads. No time for anything except move. The 101st loaded onto 380 trucks, and convoy headed north through freezing night. They arrived Bastogne at 2100 hours December 19th, exactly 4 hours before leading German elements reached town outskirts. For hours. That's how close it was. By noon December 21st, all 7 highways leading to Bastogne were cut by German forces. The trap had snapped shut. Inside perimeter, approximately 22,000 Americans, elements of 101st Airborne Division, Combat Command B of 10th Armored Division, 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, various artillery and support units. Outside perimeter, approximately 54,000 Germans from 3 divisions, with more arriving daily. 5-1 numerical advantage. Complete encirclement. Winter weather grounding Allied air forces. German confidence was absolute. From German perspective, this was Stalingrad in reverse. Now Americans were trapped, cut off, doomed to surrender or die. Luttwitz had been in France 1940, when British Expeditionary Force was trapped at Dunkirk. He'd seen what happened to encircled forces. They withered. Morale collapsed. They surrendered. Americans in Bastogne had perhaps 3 days' ammunition, maybe 4 days' food if rationed carefully. Harsh winter weather, temperatures dropping to -10 degrees Celsius, would do half the work for him. Confidence was so high that 2 Panzer divisions of 47th Panzer Corps, after using mobility to isolate Bastogne, continued mission toward Meuse River on December 22nd rather than attacking with single large force. They left just 1 regiment behind to assist 26 Volksgrenadier in capturing Crossroads. Why waste precious tanks and fuel on town that would fall from starvation and cold? Main objective was Antwerp. Bastogne was just an annoying obstacle that would sort itself out. Before we continue with how 241 C-47 transport aircraft shattered German confidence in 3 hours, and why the aerial armada over Bastogne convinced thousands of Wehrmacht soldiers the war was already lost. If you're fascinated by these stories of impossible logistics that broke enemy morale faster than any artillery barrage, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We publish deeply researched military history documentaries every week that bring you the moments when industrial capacity defeated tactical brilliance. Now, back to December 1944 and the aerial demonstration that wrote the final chapter of German hopes in the West. The situation deteriorated hourly. McAuliffe's command post, former Belgian barracks with shattered windows, had become crisis management center running on frozen determination and dwindling supplies. Colonel Harry W. O'Kinnard, 29 years old, from Dallas, G3 operations officer, compiled inventory that grew worse with each update. Artillery ammunition status, December 21st, 1400 hours. 105 millimeters howitzer shells, averaging 10 rounds per gun per day, normal expenditure, 100 plus rounds per day in combat. Some batteries down to 6 rounds total fire missions being denied unless targets were concentrated enemy formations. Small arms ammunition, rifle ammunition, averaging 80 rounds per man, minimal for sustained combat. Machine gun belts being counted individual rounds orders issued. No automatic fire except direct assault. Food supplies. K-rations, half ration per man per day breakfast. 1 K-ration shared between 2 soldiers' dinner. Same hot meals. Impossible. Fuel needed for vehicles and heaters for wounded. Medical crisis. Wounded. 500 plus requiring evacuation surgical supplies. Critically low morphine. Being rationed in most severe cases only blood plasma. Nearly exhausted operated without anesthesia for minor procedures frostbite cases. Increasing exponentially. Threatening to overwhelm combat casualties. Fuel status. Gasoline remaining. Approximately 4,000 gallons. Enough for 3 to 4 days limited operations. Tank and vehicle movement being severely restricted choices. Use fuel for combat vehicles or use for ambulances evacuating wounded. Lieutenant Colonel Ned Moore, division surgeon, 38 years old from Tennessee. Reported situation in aid stations was approaching catastrophic. Wounded men lying on frozen floors. Minimal heating. Bandages being washed and reused. Surgical instruments sterilized and snow-melted water boiled over makeshift fires. The lucky ones died quickly. Low clouds. Freezing fog. Snow. The weather had grounded feared Allied air forces completely. For first time since Normandy, German forces could move in daylight without fear of fighter bombers. They could concentrate formations without reconnaissance aircraft spotting them. They could attack without carpet bombing that had destroyed so many German units in France. Inside Bastogne, men looked at gray sky with growing desperation. Where was Air Corps? Where were supply drops? Where were fighter bombers that had dominated European skies since D-Day? The answer was grounded. Sitting on airfields in England and France, pilots and crews watching weather forecasts, waiting for breaking clouds. German soldiers, meanwhile, moved freely. Supply trucks drove to forward positions in daylight. Artillery repositioned without harassment. Infantry formations assembled for attacks in plain view. The weather was winning war for Germany. December 22, 1944. 1,130 hours. Southern approaches to Bastogne. The scene was almost theatrical in its formality. 4 German soldiers emerged from tree lines south of town. 2 carried white flags, bedsheets attached to rifles. They walked slowly up our lone road, flags raised high, clearly visible to American positions. The senior officer, Major Wagner, 41 years old from Bavaria, 47th Panzer Corps staff. Junior officer, Lieutenant Helmut Henke, 24 years old, Panzer Lehr Operations Section, carrying briefcase under arm. They'd even brought blindfolds, confident they'd be taken to American commander to discuss surrender terms. American sentries from 327th Glider Infantry spotted them, reported to company commander. Captain James Adams, 26 years old from Ohio, went forward to meet them under white flag. Germans requested meeting with American commander. Adams told them to wait. Soldiers blindfolded German officers, ironically, exactly as Germans had expected, but for wrong reason, and led them to 327th Command Post. Their German ultimatum was delivered, typed document, in both English and German, formal, threatening. The text, to the USA commander, the encircled town of Bastogne. The fortune of war is changing. This time, the USA forces in and near Bastogne have been encircled by strong German armored units. More German armored units have crossed the river Arneer Ortuville, have taken Marquet and reached St. Hubert by passing through Humper-Sabret-Tillet. Liebermont is in German hands. There's only one possibility to save the encircled USA troops from total annihilation. That is the honorable surrender of the encircled town. In order to think it over, a term of 2 hours will be granted beginning with the presentation of this note. If this proposal should be rejected, 1 German artillery corps and 6 heavy aid battalions are ready to annihilate the USA troops in and near Bastogne. The order for firing will be given immediately after this 2 hours term. All the serious civilian losses caused by this artillery fire would not correspond with the well-known American humanity, the German commander. From German perspective, they were being generous, offering Americans chance to avoid pointless slaughter. Stalingrad had taught them what happened to encircled forces that refused surrender. Hunger, cold, death. Better to surrender with honor. The ultimatum was delivered to division headquarters. Staff officers read it, looked at each other, waited for McAuliffe's response. McAuliffe read it once, said one word, nuts, then walked away to deal with more important matters, like how to stretch 6 artillery shells per gun through another day of German attacks. Staff officers looked at each other. How do you send nuts as official response? They drafted formal reply, but McAuliffe rejected it, told them to send exactly what he'd said. Colonel Joseph Harper, commander, 327 Glider Infantry, 39 years old from Tennessee, was given task of delivering response to German officers. 1,315 hours. Harper returns to German delegation. Germans waited expectantly, certain that Americans, having considered their hopeless position, would negotiate terms. Harper handed them single sheet of paper. The Germans read it. Confusion spread across their faces. The complete text of American response. To the German commander. Nuts. The American commander. Lieutenant Henke looked at Major Wagner. Wagner looked at paper. Both looked at Harper. I do not understand. What does this mean? Harper's response became legendary. In plain English, it's the same as go to hell. And I'll tell you something else. If you continue to attack, we will kill every goddamn German that tries to break into the city. Harper pointed a road leading out of Bastogne. If you don't understand what nuts means, in plain English, it means the same as go to hell. And I will tell you something else. If you continue to attack, we will kill every goddamn German that tries to break into the city. Then he gestured for guards to escort Germans back to their lines. As they were being led away blindfolded, Harper called out, "And we will be giving your people a Christmas present tomorrow." 1,400 hours. German 47th Panzer Corps headquarters. When Wagner and Heinke reported American response, German commanders were stunned. No surrounded force had ever responded so dismissively to surrender demand. Kokott reportedly sat silent for several minutes, rereading message. Luttwitz telephoned higher headquarters to confirm Americans had actually refused. In post-war interrogation, Kokott revealed his thinking. We offered honorable terms. We had them surrounded 5-1. No supplies could reach them, whether prevented all air operations. Refusal seemed not brave but insane. I began to wonder what these Americans knew that we did not. What Americans knew, weather forecast was changing. Clear skies were coming. And when clear skies came, Air Corps would come with them. December 23rd, 1944. 0615 hours. Bastogne perimeter. Men woke to something they hadn't seen in weeks. Stars. Clear sky. No clouds. No fog. Word spread through frozen foxholes with electric speed. Weather's clearing. Air Corps is coming. At 0630 hours, temperature was -8 degrees Celsius. Sky was crystal clear. Visibility unlimited. In England and France, at a dozen different airfields. See, 47 transport crews were already preparing for mission they'd been briefed on for 3 days, but couldn't execute due to weather. 0645 hours. RAF Charlegrove, England. Pathfinder teams prepare. 2. Pathfinder sticks. Teams of paratroopers equipped with colored smoke grenades, panels, and radio beacons, loaded onto lead C-47s. Their mission, jump first, mark drop zones, guide main force. Captain James Parker, 27 years old from Michigan, led one team. Lieutenant Charles Gideon, 25 from Georgia, led second. They would jump into uncertain situation. Drop zones were supposed to be inside American lines. But supposed to be and definitely are were two different things in fluid combat situation. At 0645 hours, 2 C-47s carrying Pathfinder teams took off from Charlegrove, headed for Belgium. 0900 hours. 9 Troop Carrier Command bases, France. 2 41C, 47 Skitran transport aircraft were being loaded with supplies. Organized chaos as crews worked against clock to load maximum tonnage. Each aircraft could carry approximately 6,000 pounds of supplies and fuselage, plus bundles attached to belly racks that would be pushed out manually. System wasn't random. Color coding allowed ground crews in Bastogne to prioritize recovery. Red parachutes, ammunition, would be recovered first under fire if necessary. Medical supplies second. Food could wait. Lieutenant Colonel Joel Crouch, 42 years old from Texas, commanding officer of one transport group, briefed his pilots at 0830 hours. Gentlemen, weather has finally broken. The 101st has been surrounded for 4 days. They're out of everything. Our job is to deliver supplies regardless of enemy fire. Drop altitude will be 1,000 feet. Low enough for accuracy, high enough that German small arms can't effectively engage us. German flak will be heavy. Some of you won't make it back. But that's 22,000 American soldiers down there who need us. We're going in. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. They understood mission. 0935 hours. Pathfinder teams jump. Parker and Gideon's teams jump from 1,200 feet into fields northeast of Bastogne. American troops on perimeter spotted parachutes, recognized them as friendly, rushed to secure them. Within 10 minutes, Pathfinder teams had smoke grenades ready, panels laid out in recognition patterns, radio beacons activated. They radioed England, drop zones marked. Green light, send them in. German observation posts, multiple locations around Bastogne. Oberstreiter Klaus Hoffmann, at Opie on Hill 510, was first to spot them. Low drone from southwest. Growing louder, he raised binoculars. Focus. Froze. Aircraft were coming. Not scattered individuals. Not small desperate flight. A formation. Tight. Professional. Dozens of aircraft in perfect V formations, multiple versus stacked at different altitudes, all converging on Bastogne. Her lieutenant, aircraft, many aircraft. His platoon leader, Lieutenant Friedrich Weber, 31 years old from Munich, grabbed binoculars, looked, his face went pale. Got him Himmel. All around Bastogne perimeter, German soldiers looked up. The sound was unmistakable now. Hundreds of aircraft engines, synchronized some, that filled entire sky. Inside Bastogne, 1,150 hours. American soldiers heard it first, stopped what they were doing, looked at each other. Some started crying. Tough paratroopers who'd held line for 4 days against impossible odds, who'd rationed their last bullets, who'd operated on wounded without morphine. They heard that sound and wept with relief. It's the Air Corps. They're here. They came. Men climbed out of foxholes despite German snipers, stood on tanks, waved helmets, screamed at sky. The first wave appeared. 60 C-47s in perfect formation, flying at 1,000 feet altitude, doors open, bundles ready. Lead aircraft reached designated drop zone. Green light. Crew chiefs started pushing bundles outdoors. Colored parachutes blossomed. Red, blue, yellow, white, green, orange. They drifted down slowly, wind carrying them across snow-covered fields inside American perimeter. One paratrooper from 101st, watching from foxhole, later wrote in diary, "I have never seen anything so beautiful in my life. The sky was full of colored parachutes. It looked like Christmas, like God himself was sending us presents. Men were crying and laughing at the same time. We knew we weren't going to die here. America hadn't forgotten us." Second wave, 60 more C-47s, more parachutes. The sky was becoming filled with them. Hundreds, thousands. Third wave, fourth wave. The aircraft kept coming. German anti-aircraft crews scrambled to weapons. 88mm flak guns, pride of German artillery, deadly against aircraft and tanks alike, swiveled skyward. Crews loaded, aimed, fired. 20mm automatic cannons began their rapid staccato. Machine guns added voices to crescendo. Sky filled with black puffs of exploding shells. Tracer rounds arced upward like deadly fireworks. See, 47 Bad Penny, pilot, Captain Robert McNeese, 29, from Indiana. McNeese held steady course as flak erupted around his aircraft. Shells burst close enough to rock plane. Shrapnel pinged off aluminum skin. In cargo bay, Sergeant William Mertz, 23 from Wisconsin, pushed bundles outdoor. One particularly loud explosion made both men flinch. Hole appeared in fuselage between them. Enemy round had passed through aircraft, missing both men by inches. Mertz looked at Hole, looked at McNeese. Both men laughed. Half hysterical laughter of those who just survived death by luck. McNeese maintained course, kept doors open. Mertz kept pushing bundles. They completed drop, banked away trailing smoke from minor engine damage, but made it back to France. See, 47 Heaven Can Wait, pilot, Lieutenant James Harper, 25, from California. Harper wasn't as lucky. Flak burst directly under left wing, tore massive hole in wing root. Aircraft shuddered, lost altitude. Engine caught fire. Harper fought controls, kept aircraft level long enough for crew to finish dropping supplies, then banked away from Bastogne, trying to gain altitude, trying to reach friendly lines. They almost made it. Engine fire spread. At 800 feet altitude, Harper ordered crew to bail out, for men jumped. Harper stayed with aircraft trying to control it away from American positions. Aircraft exploded in forest 3 kilometers west of Bastogne. Harper's body was recovered 3 days later by advancing American forces. He was awarded Distinguished Flying Cross posthumously. See 47 Lucky Strike, pilot, Captain Paul Davidson, 31, from Texas. Davidson's aircraft took flak hit in tail section. Entire tail assembly engulfed in flames. Aircraft was done, everyone aboard knew it, but they were directly over drop zone. Davidson held course. Crew pushed out remaining bundles, even as flames spread forward. At last possible moment, Davidson ordered bailout. Crew jumped at 600 feet, barely enough altitude for parachutes to deploy. 3 men made it. Co-pilot's parachute deployed but didn't fully open. He hit ground too hard, broke both legs, survived. Davidson stayed with burning aircraft, fighting controls, trying to guide away from American positions concentrated below. Aircraft crashed into German-held forest. Davidson died instantly. Watching American soldiers, saw him stay with burning plane, saw him guided away from friendlies. Several men later stated they'd never forget that sight. Aircraft fully engulfed in flames, pilots staying at controls until impact. Acts of courage were happening simultaneously across dozens of aircraft. Pilots flying through Flak, crews staying at posts. Nobody broke formation. Nobody aborted. The supplies had to get through. What German observers witnessed over the next 45 minutes shattered their understanding of modern warfare. Oberstleutnant Hoffmann, still at his observation post, tried to count and categorize what was falling from sky. His training as intelligence observer had taught him to estimate enemy capabilities from logistics. He counted parachutes by color. Red parachutes. Ammunition over 400 visible at one time. Each represented hundreds of artillery shells or thousands of rifle rounds. He calculated. More ammunition falling in a single hour than his entire division had fired in past week. Blue parachutes. Medical supplies over 150. Each carried plasma, surgical equipment, morphine. American wounded below were receiving better medical care in siege than German wounded in fully supplied hospitals. Yellow parachutes. Food uncountable. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Each carried dozens of K rations. Americans below were being fed better than German troops on offensive operations. White parachutes. Equipment over 200. Winter clothing, blankets, boots. Germans were fighting in summer uniforms with whatever winter gear they'd scrounged. Americans were being resupplied with proper cold weather equipment by air. Green parachutes, communications dozens, radio batteries, replacement equipment. Americans could maintain communications while German radio net was degraded by equipment failures. Orange parachutes, fuel over 100. Each carried multiple 5-gallon jerry cans of gasoline. German Panzer divisions were grinding to halt from fuel shortages. Americans were having fuel delivered by air to surrounded garrison. Hoffmann lowered binoculars, looked at his squad mates. They were all watching sky with same expression, stunned comprehension of impossible disparity. Gefreiter Hans Müller, 20 years old from Berlin, spoke what everyone was thinking. How? How can they do this? Where do all these aircraft come from? Where do all these supplies come from? This is one small town. If they can do this for one town, what can they do across an entire front? Hoffmann had no answer. None of them did. But morning drop was just beginning. Throughout afternoon, additional missions arrived. 1,400 hours. Second major wave. Another formation, 50 plus C-47s. This time including gliders. CG-4A Waco gliders towed by C-47s. Carrying supplies too heavy or delicate for parachute drops. Gliders carried. Complete surgical units with doctors and nurses' jeeps artillery pieces, disassembled. Whole blood for transfusions. In insulated containers, communications, equipment, even Christmas packages from home. 92.4 tons of supplies delivered by glider alone, including 2,975 gallons of gasoline. German medical officers watching through binoculars were particularly demoralized by gliders. While they were treating wounded with paper bandages, operated without anesthesia, the Americans were flying in refrigerated blood, penicillin, complete surgical teams. Oberstars, senior medical officer, Klaus Becker, 43 from Cologne, attached to 26 Volksgrenadier Division, watched gliders land inside Bastogne perimeter. He later wrote in diary, "They flew in blood. Whole blood for transfusions. We haven't had whole blood at division level since 1942. They flew in penicillin. We have none. They flew in surgical teams with nurses. Our wounded die from infections that American medicine could easily cure. The gap in medical capability alone is enough to lose this war." As if aerial resupply wasn't demoralizing enough, clear weather brought something worse. American air superiority in its most terrifying form. 1,430 hours. P-47 Thunderbolts from 9 Tactical Air Command. They came low and fast. Republic P-47D Thunderbolts, 8.50 caliber machine guns, 500-pound bombs, high-velocity rockets. They'd been grounded for week by weather. Now, they were hunting everything that moved. Missions were simple. Destroy German forces besieging Bastogne. Kill anything flying swastika. Every road became death trap. Every movement in daylight invited destruction. Under-officer Paul Schmidt, 24 from Dresden, anti-tank gun crew commander with 26 Volksgrenadier, later described it in POW interrogation. We've been moving freely in daylight for a week. We've forgotten what air attacks were like. Then on December 23rd, sky cleared and they came. Everywhere. All at once. Fighter bombers at treetop height. You couldn't hide. Couldn't run. If you're on road, you died. If you were in field, you died. If you stayed in foxhole and they saw you, rockets came down and you died anyway. We went from winning to dying in one morning. German supply column. Road between Wiltz and Bastogne. 1,445 hours. The column consisted of 40 trucks carrying ammunition and fuel, 12 horse-drawn artillery pieces, battalion headquarters vehicles, field kitchen, ambulances. P-47 spotted them from 6,000 feet. Rolled into attack dive. First pass. .50 caliber machine guns. 8 guns per aircraft for aircraft attacking. Combined rate of fire over 200 rounds per second. Trucks exploded. Horses screamed. Men died. Second pass. Rockets. High-velocity aerial rockets, VARs, with 4.5-inch warheads. They turned trucks into burning wrecks. Killed horses still in harness. Cratered road. Third pass. 500-pound bombs. Direct hits on ammunition trucks caused secondary explosions that destroyed everything within 50 meters. Entire column destroyed in 4 minutes. Survivors counted later. 120-plus dead, 80-plus wounded. 38 of 40 trucks destroyed. All artillery pieces damaged or destroyed. Battalion unable to continue mission. This scene repeated across dozens of roads simultaneously. German mobile warfare ground to halt. Units that had been advancing couldn't advance. Units that needed resupply couldn't be resupplied. By mid-afternoon, December 23rd, psychological transformation among German besiegers was complete. They'd witnessed not just supply drop, but demonstration of industrial and logistical superiority that defied comprehension. German 26 Volksgrenadier Division Command Post, 1,600 hours. Generalmajor Kokott held staff meeting to assess situation. His officers reported. Operations officer. Sir, we cannot move in daylight. Fighter bombers destroy everything. Roads are blocked with wrecked vehicles. Supply columns cannot reach forward units. Intelligence officer. Sir, Americans receive approximately 200-ton supplies by parachute, additional 90-plus tons by glider. They now have more ammunition than we do. Their artillery has resumed normal rate of fire. They're shooting at everything. Logistics officer. Sir, we're critically short of fuel, ammunition, food. Request was denied. Higher headquarters states all reserves committed elsewhere. American aerial interdiction has cut our supply lines. Medical officer. Sir, we have 400-plus wounded requiring evacuation. Ambulances cannot move in daylight. Fighter bombers attack everything. Our aid stations are overwhelmed. We're out of morphine, bandages, plasma. Wounded are dying from treatable injuries. Kokott listened in silence. Then asked question everyone was thinking. If Americans can afford to risk hundreds of aircraft to supply one surrounded division, what reserves do they have? If they can deliver hundreds of tons of supplies with perfect coordination on few hours' notice, what is their true industrial capacity? Nobody answered. Nobody could. One of his battalion commanders, Major Joseph Rink, 38 from Bavaria, veteran of Eastern Front, finally spoke. Sir, permission to speak frankly? We're not fighting an army. We're fighting an industrial civilization. They have factories producing aircraft faster than we can shoot them down. They have supplies unlimited. They have logistics we cannot match. This offensive was doomed before it started. Kokott didn't discipline him. He knew Rink was right. Christmas morning attack, December 25th, 0400 hours. German plan. Concentrate forces for sequential attacks on western side perimeter rather than simultaneous attack on all sides. Reason. Insufficient troops, those available near exhaustion. 0400 hours. Pre-dawn darkness. 18 Panzer IV tanks with supporting infantry from Panzer Grenadier Regiment began infiltration toward American lines northwest of Bastogne. They advanced through snow and forest, engines muffled, trying to achieve surprise. 0445 hours. They broke through. Thin defensive line of 327th Glider Infantry was penetrated. Tanks and infantry poured through gap, advancing toward Hemmerl, village just behind front lines. For a moment, it seemed Germans might succeed. Tanks were moving through American rear areas. Infantry following. Radio reports at German headquarters were optimistic, but American response was ferocious and backed by ammunition delivered just 2 days earlier. 463rd Parachute Field Artillery Battalion, 1875 mm pack howitzers. Lieutenant Colonel John Cooper, 34 from Pennsylvania, commanding 463rd, received urgent call from forward observers. Enemy tanks penetrating. Grid coordinates. Cooper ordered all 18 guns to traverse to new firing direction. Within 2 minutes, all guns were oriented toward breakthrough. Battalion. Fire mission. Enemy armor concentration. High explosive. Rapid fire. Shoot. All 18 guns fired simultaneously, then reloaded and fired again. And again. Rate of fire. 45 rounds per minute per gun. 18 guns times 5 rounds equals 90 shells per minute hammering German breakthrough. This wouldn't have been possible on December 21st. They had only 6 rounds per gun. Now, thanks to air resupply, they had hundreds of rounds per gun. They could fire at full rate. German tanks tried to advance through artillery barrage. 3 were hit directly, exploded, others damaged. Infantry took heavy casualties, went aground. 10 tanks pushed forward toward Hemmerl, but 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion was waiting. M18 Hellcat tank destroyers. Fast, lethal, armed with 76 mm guns that could kill Panzer IV at 1,000 meters. Lieutenant Colonel Clifford Templeton, 36 from Illinois, commanding 705th, had positioned his tank destroyers in perfect ambush positions covering approaches to Hemmerl. German tanks advanced into kill zone. American tank destroyers opened fire from hull-down positions. First volley destroyed 4 tanks. Second volley destroyed 3 more. Remaining 3 tanks tried to withdraw. 2 were destroyed withdrawing, 1 escaped. 1,645 hours. Southern edge of Bastogne perimeter. Soldiers on perimeter heard new sound. Tank engines. Artillery fire. But coming from south, from friendly direction. Word spread. It's Patton, 3rd Army's here. 1,700 hours. First Sherman tanks from 4th Armored Division broke through German lines. Leading element. 37th Tank Battalion, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Williams Abrams, Jr., 30 years old from Massachusetts, would later command all U.S. forces in Vietnam as full general. His tanks smashed through German positions south of Bastogne, linked up with 101st Airborne perimeter, established corridor. The siege was officially lifted, but the 101st hadn't needed relief to survive. Air resupply had ensured that. What Patton's breakthrough provided was end-to-encirclement, evacuation route for wounded, supply route for heavy equipment airdrops couldn't deliver. McAuliffe greeted Abrams personally. It's good to see you, but we were doing fine. We had everything we needed except some fresh underwear and a few cases of whiskey. It wasn't braggadocio. It was truth. Air resupply had transformed siege from desperate last stand into sustainable defensive operation. Generalmajor Heinz Kokott, 26 Folks Grenadier Division commander, post-war interrogation. When those transport planes filled sky on December 23rd, every German soldier who saw them understood we weren't fighting just an army. We were fighting entire industrial civilization, and we were armed with rifles and horses against enemy that could fill sky with aircraft at will. Some of my officers had witnessed Stalingrad airlift attempt in 1942-43. Luftwaffe promised 6th Army would be supplied by air, maximum delivered in single day, 290 tons. Average daily delivery, 94 tons. Army needed 800 tons per day minimum. The airlift failed. 300,000 men died or surrendered. Now we watched Americans deliver 250-plus tons to Bastogne in single day, effortlessly, routinely. The comparison was devastating to morale. General der Panzertruppe Heinrich Freiherr von Luttwitz, 47th Panzer Corps commander. After December 23rd, I knew offensive had failed. Not because of tactical situation. We still had strength to attack. But because American air resupply demonstrated something we couldn't overcome. Unlimited industrial capacity. I had been confident we could starve them into surrender. Instead, they received better supply by air than my attacking forces received by road. The psychological impact on my soldiers was catastrophic. They'd been told Germany would win through superior will. Now they saw enemy with superior everything. Aircraft, supplies, organization, industrial capacity. When I later met Colonel Harry Kinnard, Operations Officer 101st, I was shocked at how young he was. 29 years old, commanding defensive operations that defeated my corps. I asked if he'd truly been Chief of Operations. He confirmed. My officers couldn't believe it. This boyish-faced American had been our principal antagonist. General der Panzertruppenasso von Manschufel, 5th Panzer Army Commander, post-war memoirs. Bastogne demonstrated Americans had solved modern warfare's fundamental problem: logistics under fire. They could supply encircled forces by air more efficiently than Germany could supply advancing forces by road. When weather permitted, their material superiority rendered tactical excellence irrelevant. I had commanded armies in Russia, fought at Kursk, Kharkov, multiple campaigns. I understood warfare. But what happened at Bastogne wasn't warfare as I understood it. It was industrial capacity defeating military force. America wasn't fighting war. America was manufacturing victory. December 27th to January 4th, German forces continued attacking. Hitler couldn't accept that surrounded American force had not only survived but had been supplied, so effectively they were stronger after siege than before. He ordered continuing attacks. More divisions committed. More casualties inflicted for no gain. Reinforcements thrown into battle. 1st SS Panzer Division from 6th SS Panzer Army. 9 THSS Panzer Division Führer, Begleit Brigade. Elite unit from Führer's personal escort. 167 TH Volksgrenadier Division. All bled white against American positions now reinforced and resupplied. Last major German attack. January 4th, 1945. Stalled within hours. German soldiers attacked same positions repeatedly, achieving nothing but adding to casualty lists. By January 9th, Germans were withdrawing from Bastogne sector. Offensive had failed completely. Psychological impact of Bastogne air resupply spread rapidly through German ranks across entire Ardennes offensive. Every unit had soldiers who'd either witnessed it directly or heard detailed accounts from those who had. Story grew with each telling, but essential truth remained. America possessed material resources beyond German comprehension. Prisoner interrogations, December 25, 1944 to January 15, 1945. U.S. Army intelligence officers noted marked change in tone of German prisoners captured after December 23rd versus before. Before December 23rd, prisoners spoke of temporary setbacks, eventual victory, faith in Führer's strategy. Many expected to be treated as prisoners only briefly before German counteroffensive freed them. After December 23rd, prisoners spoke only of survival, hope war would end quickly, no expectation of German victory. Many expressed relief at being captured. Better prison camp than die in hopeless offensive. Interrogation reports noted. Prisoners who witnessed air resupply at Bastogne consistently cited as moment they understood Germany would lose war. The demonstration of American logistics under fire convinced them their own leadership had lied about true strategic situation. The 101st Airborne would never surrender because they didn't need to. Their nation could supply them through very air itself, turning ancient art of siege warfare into obsolete relic. German soldiers who watched 241 C-47s on December 23, 1944, plus continuing waves of supply aircraft, witnessed not just relief of Bastogne, but future of warfare itself. A future that belonged to a nation that could fill sky with aircraft as easily as Germany could fill field with soldiers. They'd seen arithmetic of American abundance, and in those numbers was written final chapter of Third Reich. War continued another 5 months after Bastogne. But for those who witnessed sky over Bastogne filled with American planes, it had ended on that clear December morning. They realized 101st would never surrender, not because paratroopers were braver or better soldiers, but because their nation would never let them fail. Planes over Bastogne didn't just supply 101st Airborne. They shattered last illusions of German victory, wrote in sky final truth of Second World War. America's arsenal was vast, its resolve unbreakable, its victory certain. German soldiers who witnessed that aerial armada knew with absolute certainty what their leaders would deny for 4 more months. War was over. America had won it, in skies over small Belgian town, on clear December morning, when whole world could see that 101st Airborne would never surrender. December 23rd, 1944, 1,150 hours. Oberstfreiter Klaus Hoffmann lowered his binoculars for final time, looked at his squad mates, said words that summarized everything. Mein Gott, the sky is full of them. And in those 6 words was entire truth of war's outcome.